Hi, welcome to the F1 Time Portal, a Formula One history podcast started by two Formula One admirers. I'm your host, Rosa.
And I'm your Ruby Tuesday host, Luigi. And today we're taking you back to the 1967 season, so let's go.
Is that one of your favourite songs, Louis?
Oh, look, it's not one of my favourite songs. It's a Rolling Stones song, for those of you that don't know. It's just a good song. Like, I looked through what songs were released in 67, and I like that song. You know, it's just a interesting bitty, is a good way of putting it.
But in no way connected to Formula One.
No, they can't all be. There's only so many drive my car songs out there, you know? So, yeah, here we are. You and I haven't we haven't recorded for like a month. So if we sound a bit rusty, everyone, cut us some slack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1966.
Today we're recording about 67. Oh. Do you want me to start about the recap of 66? Is that what you're trying to say?
Sorry. Yeah, 1967.
Yay. But the funny thing is it didn't help that when I set this recording link up, because as most of you know, Rose is in Adelaide and I'm in Sydney, and we record these remotely, and I put in the password for the link to enable us to record, and the password I put in was 1966.
Yeah.
For 1967 episode.
That is definitely what's stuck in my brain.
Yeah, and the first word on this review is 1966 that I can see, so everything is pointing to 66. We need to go back in time, I think. So, yeah. But shall we get into it, Rosa? This is a pretty cool. This is a pretty interesting season, actually, because
it is
different to 66. That's for sure.
Mm.
Yeah. So 66 was a difficult year for many of the teams, especially, you may recall we talked about it, with the withdrawal of Coventry Climax, forcing many teams to be caught out in terms of the engines, and it showed through the 66 season, especially with the engine that we love to talk about the most, the disastrous H16 BRM engine.
Yes, that monstrosity with 9 fuel tanks. That was very unreliable, but had 400 brake horsepower.
Yeah.
I think that we never ever saw in action.
Yeah. Oh, except Clark did win a race.
He did. It did take a Jim Clark to nail a race though. So, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're talking about 67 now. So that's just a recap of 66, right?
Yeah. The Brabham team did good though. They were very solid last year, didn't they?
Very solid, very reliable. And it didn't come through at the very beginning. It sort of built up and then they just kept being reliable after the first one or two races. I remember they didn't look like the team they were at the start of the year. Mm. So for 67, Jack Brabham elected to a partner with Repco. Oh no, this is still reviewing. It's funny hell.
I think we need to start this again.
Should we? No, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. People understand that we haven't recorded for a month, right? And I haven't had my coffee. I'm having my coffee at the end of the first episode of this one. So to recap, Brabham used the Repco engine, and for context, it was developing about 285 brake horsepower versus the 400 of the H16, but was super reliable and won him the title. Pretty impressively, right?
Yeah, won in both titles, drivers and constructors.
Yeah.
Like he took a big gamble going with Repco and it paid off. So good on him.
Yeah, and Repco is an Australian business, I think, and is still operating. A different business model now. It doesn't do Formula One engines, but
no, it doesn't do any engines. I think it just does like parts, doesn't it? Like car parts.
Yeah, and engineering services and things like that. Yeah. I don't know if we talked about it. We probably did in the 66 episode that 66 Brabham is a bit of an iconic car, apparently worth $18 to $20 million, but it's not owned by the Brabham family. I think it's owned by the Repco organisation.
Yes.
Yeah, we probably talked about it.
I don't think we did.
Okay, well, there you go, everyone.
Yeah, there you go. We have now.
Yeah. So for 67, Brabham is actually sticking with the same engine and the same drivers, himself and Denny Hulme, but there were a few changes that we need to highlight for the 67 season that affected everyone else. So if you remember, Colin Chapman persuaded Ford to develop a competitive F1 engine, and amazingly, we see the debut of the infamous Ford-Cosworth DFV, and DFV stands for Double Valve 4, and it was in the specially built Lotus 49, and so Lotus, after having a very tough 66, things were perhaps looking up for Lotus in 67.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they also signed 1962 champion Mr. Graham Hill, who replaced Peter Arundel.
And now we have Clark and Hill in the same team. This will be interesting. Surely Clark is still number one, though.
Well, as we know, Mike Lang is significantly British bias, and he described them as joint number one drivers. So that will be very interesting, won't it?
Yes. We always see problems when there's joint number ones, but I think, Hill is better than Arundel, so it's a big step for Lotus. And this is Hill coming back to Lotus because he started there, didn't he? Back in
the 50s.
50s. Yeah.
So it was a big change. I mean, he's obviously seen Lotus get huge success.
Yes.
63 should have been 64, maybe 65. He's joining a team that, I mean, he's leaving the H16 BRM team. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah. So at BRM, which is Hill's former team, Mike Spence joins to replace Graham Hill and actually is partnering with Jackie Stewart. So that's a big change there. So you'd have to say the Lotus team has strengthened, like you mentioned, Rosie, the driver lineup, and you'd have to say the BRM has unstrengthened theirs.
Yeah. Weakened. I think the word is weakened.
Weakened. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Nice. So Surtees signed with Honda after switching to them in 1966, and they debut a new car this season, the RA300.
Yes, apparently Surtees was heavily involved in the development of that car. So even though headquarters were in Japan, pretty impressive. I think he also got some help from his former team, Lola Racing, to build a lighter chassis. So he had some connections and, he kind of made it work for Honda. Yeah.
And Lola, you're very happy to mention that there because I did.
I just wanted to get that team in. Yes.
Yeah. We keep talking about that song. So Gurney's Eagle team have found other drivers to join Dan Gurney for 67, which interestingly included none other than Bruce McLaren, who himself has his own team. And that's because Bruce McLaren was waiting. Oh, sorry, try to say this correctly. The McLaren team were waiting for their new chassis to be ready. So as a result, their lead driver, Bruce McLaren, had no car. So he actually filled in for the Eagle team on occasion, which is a bit weird to sort of say, if you know what I mean.
Yes, it is weird.
Yeah. And Mr. Richie Ginther, who's what I would call a perennial solid number two who gets a win here and there. He retires from Formula One.
Yeah, he does. It's very sudden, very early in the season, and he has a traumatic accident while trying to qualify for the 1967 Indy 500 this year.
Yeah.
But other things happen, but I don't think we'll go into them now because we just want to keep them for when we talk about them when they happen. But I think he drives for Eagle in one race, but that's it.
Yeah, and we'll get to that later. So true. So Chris Amon signed with Ferrari and joined Bandini and Parks.
Has Amon joined Ferrari at the right time? Ferrari's going through a very dry spell at the moment.
Well, it's been a long. They sort of snagged 64 championship, but it's been pretty quiet since then.
Yeah, I mean, really, the last dominant year for them was 61, wasn't it?
Yeah, when they had their shark nose. Yeah,
the shark nose, and really, so this is an interesting move for Chris.
Yeah, and let's not forget when we did the TP Shark Nose Championship. I don't remember exactly, but I don't even think did we give it to the Ferrari team? I don't think so.
We did.
Yeah, they were dominant, but someone else was more dominant. And we have to be hiding it because someone should have listened to that by now. I think we gave it to Moss.
I think we did.
Yeah,
I think we did.
I haven't got the file up in front of me, but I'm pretty certain we did. Yeah. Who knows if he's picked the right time? You'd think on paper, any team that's got the budget and the resources and the heritage, even Ferrari had heritage at this stage.
Yes.
You wouldn't say no to joining Ferrari.
And they're not caught up in the big engine debacle. They've got their own engine.
You know what they do? They create their own they just don't call it the H16. They create their own H16 every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. The Tipo 3 something.
Yeah, no, the Tipos were good. They were the best Ferraris, actually. The Tipo 312 series. They were awesome cars. And I think, they're not coming yet. They're coming. Yeah.
They're coming. Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know. This will be interesting.
Yeah.
I have my fingers crossed for them both.
Yeah, let's see. So while at Cooper, so I would call a legacy team that has a memory of having won races, like we're talking 59, 60. And when I say races, championships, because I think they sporadically win races here and there, right? So while at Cooper, Pedro Rodriguez signed up, joining Jochen Rindt, who is now the undisputed number one for that team.
Yes. We do have some sad events, like I said, happening this season, but we'll go through them as we come to them through the season.
Yeah. So these sad events, which I think our listeners can guess, are the unfortunate occurrences in this era of Formula One. And I'm glad to say there are some regulation changes as a result of these events, but we'll cover them, as Rosa said, when we encounter them. Yeah. So we also have a new F1 team debuting this year. And in the last two races of this season, which is the Matra team, and they've been competing prior to making their debut towards the end of this season. They've been competing in F2 and F3 since 1965.
French-based team, Louis, I think. So welcome back, France, to Formula One. We haven't seen them since the 50s and the Talbot days.
Yeah, the good old classics.
Yeah.
Fill up the grid team.
Yeah. That's harsh.
I don't recall ever seeing Talbot winning. They didn't win a race, did
they?
I
don't think they did. No.
Yeah, but they persisted. You have to give them points for that. Yeah. And we have to remember that I think it's Renault that wins the very first F1 race in 1906 or thereabouts. I think it's Renault.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Like that's going – so they've got a history of success.
They do.
Just not since the World Championship started. In 1950, they just didn't really have it. The Germans and the Italians were pretty much.
Yeah, they were there. Yeah,
they were there. Yeah,
they're back. They're back.
Yeah, let's see what they can do. And it's 67, so they've got time to achieve some things without being a spoiler. Okay.
Yes.
So we're ready to do our first race of the season.
Yes, let's go.
So this is the first race 1 of 11, South African Grand Prix. And it's on that classic date, January 2, which none of us should really be working, but they are.
Killer, yeah.
I know. This race was 80 laps. There were 18 drivers. The grid formation it's a 2x2. So we're starting to see some modern day aspects coming in, but I think the 2x2 generally is more of a reflection of the width of the track than it is about transitioning to what we have today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the weather was considered hot. So we're at a new circuit this year, and it was a circuit consisting of a variety of corners and one long straight. So it was quite an interesting – so this circuit was at Kyalami. Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I did, yeah. So it was an interesting circuit, but one disadvantage of the circuit was its altitude was over 5,000 feet, which is about 1,524 meters.
Yeah, so for context, the Mexican race is 7,000 feet, which is 2,100 meters above sea level. So it's getting up there. It's sort of similar conditions as Mexico.
Yeah, and we already know, even in modern day Formula One and all time Mexico Formula One, that always changes the race because the cars perform differently because there's different pressures on the fuel and the engine. It's weird how that does, and it works for some teamers and hurts others. It's pretty unusual. Yeah. So McLaren and Ferrari were absent for this race.
I couldn't find out why. The only thing I could find out was saying that both teams just decided to start their season at the Monaco GP, which is the second race.
Yeah.
So I don't know. January 2nd's pretty tough though, isn't it? And when was the last race in 1966? It's in December sometime.
Sometimes they're close. Sometimes they're close.
Yeah. So they just decided, nah. I mean, I guess McLaren were having trouble with their chassis.
And McLaren were a new team.
So that's right.
Ferrari don't have an excuse.
Except that they're big, bad and ugly and do this quite a bit. And they don't care.
And you're right. But they normally do this at the end of the season when it doesn't matter. They're not in the running. And this is a give up sign to me. I don't think it's a good
interesting.
sign. If you're serious, if you're a serious team and you want to win a championship, you don't miss the first race. You're just handing your competitors an advantage. So I don't like this.
It's not a good start, Louis. It doesn't bode well for the rest of the season.
It doesn't at all. Yeah. No. So at this race, there were 3 2.5 hour practice sessions held, with the first one being quite uneventful. And a lot of time was spent by the team sorting out issues with engines. And remember, this was on the 2nd of January.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I don't blame
think
him.
of where our minds would be on the 2nd of January. Over these practice sessions, Brabham, the defending and now triple champion, set the fastest time. And when conditions cooled, he set a blistering time of 1 minute 28.3.
Okay, so he's starting where he left off, it looks like.
Yeah. So fuel vaporization and overheating in session 2 caused new issues, and Brabham didn't even bother going out. His teammate Hulme did go out and set a reasonable time of 1 minute 28.9, so 0.6 seconds off. But the confidence of Jack Brabham was he felt like he'd set a solid time, of course.
Mm.
So by the final session on Saturday, all the Brabham team issues had been sorted out, and the grid was set with no one beating the time set by the Brabhams in the first 2 sessions.
Hey, 1966 all over again.
Probably why we struggled at the beginning of this episode.
Yes.
So Clark in the Lotus secured 3rd, Rodriguez in the Cooper Maserati 4th, and Love in the Cooper Climax 5th, Surtees in the Honda 6th.
So where did Hill end up in his first drive for Lotus since 1959?
Yeah, he
his
was
long-awaited return.
Yeah, he was not having a good. And actually, do you recall? I recall this vividly. Remember when he was at Lotus? They were trying to make him be an engineer, and he was like adamant he wanted to drive, and he sort of
Yes, that's right.
It was a bit of a standoff.
Yes,
So
it was a standoff.
And now
yes.
he's coming back as a 1962 champion, and see, I was not a good engineer. He may have actually been a good engineer, actually.
Yes.
So yeah,
where
he lined up 15th.
Oh dear.
Yeah, not very good.
I guess he had a bit of getting used to with that Lotus. It is quite revolutionary.
Yeah.
But it's really not being an equal number one with Clark yet, is he? It's early days.
Early days. And that car's probably geared and built around Clark's driving style. A bit like in 2024, we've got the Red Bull that's totally geared to the very fun and bitey style of driving that Max Verstappen likes that no one else seems to like, in particular Sergio Perez in 24. So one thing I was going to mention just quickly before we move on was that you heard me mention Love was qualifying in 5th in the Cooper Climax. And that Climax engine is the old Climax engine.
Okay.
Now, he's a South African. He's a South African. He mostly drives in this race.
Okay.
And good on him for getting up there and mixing it with the big boys. You know what I mean?
Well, he probably knows that circuit and the conditions better than anyone else there, I guess.
Yeah, true. Good point.
Mm.
So the race was held on Monday and not Sunday, and the weather was hot and dry as the cars lined up on the dummy grid. So when the flag fell, Hulme in the Brabham shot straight into the lead. Remember, he was in 2nd, followed by Brabham and Surtees in the Honda. Then on lap 3, there was some early minor drama as Brabham spun at Crawthorne Corner after the long straight, and then he dropped to 4th between the Cooper Maseratis of Rindt and Rodriguez.
Now, Hill, you're meant to be up there with your teammate Clark. Look at the Coopers. They're there with each other, supporting each other. 15th. How did he qualify 15th when Clark was 3rd?
I know. And they even had those 3 2.5 hour sessions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like he had lack of time.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. I may be being too harsh. It's just the first race.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see how this pans out. So to the race, the order was basically Hulme in the lead, Brabham followed by Surtees, Rindt, Brabham and Rodriguez.
Where was Clark? Didn't he start 3rd?
Yeah, it's a surprise. Funnily enough, Mike Lang is very quiet on Clark, but I think that at this stage he's running about 6th.
Poor Mike. He's conflicted.
Yeah.
Maybe he's conflicted with calling it a nonsense start. I understand and empathise. I wouldn't do that to Clark either.
Yeah, he's really conflicted. But the thing is, Jim Clark is Scottish.
Yeah.
Maybe Mike Lang is Scottish as well.
No, is Lang a Scottish surname? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think when I read in these books you have these sleeves and it tells you about the author.
Yes.
I don't think it mentioned him being Scottish, but who knows? Who knows? One of his parents could have been.
Might have been.
Yeah.
In any case, Clark is down in 6th. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's right. Clark is down in 6th, yes. Wow. So the other leading Scott driver, well, he's not leading, but he's like the next in line Scott, is Jackie Stewart in the BRM. He was less fortunate than Clark because his H16 engine blew up and he was out. He was out on lap 3.
That H16 picked up where it left off too.
Yeah.
No improvements on the over the off season, I can see.
And maybe Graham Hill's thinking to himself, hey,
yeah,
15th, not too bad versus being out on lap 3. So
that's right.
I'm sure Graham Hill had a little smile on his face when he saw Stewart pulling over with that blown engine. Yeah. So it was actually Stewart's oil which caused Rindt himself to spin 2 laps later, which dropped Rindt down to 7th place behind Clark. Hill then went on a little excursion when he hit the curb at Crawthorne Corner, and this damaged his suspension and broke his oil pipe, and unfortunately, Hill, like the H16, was forced to retire.
Oh, no, that's not a great comeback to Lotus for him, especially compared to his equal number 1, Clark.
Yeah. Well, Clark is also having his own little problems with overheating, and he was forced to retire himself on lap 23 with a broken diaphragm.
Oh my God, Lotus! This is their new headline. This is their new their new marketing line. Lotus finding new parts to break every year.
Yeah, and interesting name ones too.
I know. What, we've never mentioned a diaphragm before.
I know. I'm pretty sure I know what diaphragm is on a body. I think it's a thing that pushes the lungs up and down, right?
Yes.
So I did have to Google what it was, and this is what I was advised. It's the intake manifold membrane, in brackets diaphragm, as a component of the engine air intake system that plays an important role in regulating the air supply to the engine cylinders.
Okay, well, I would say that is quite an important role. I think similar to like water and oil, I don't think an engine will run without air.
Yeah, because the air is the thing that is.
Yes.
If you know how, I'm not an expert, but I understand how cylinder system works. Do you? Probably not.
Probably no. I don't think I've ever looked into it, Louis.
Yeah, I don't want to try to give a lesson because if I give a lesson, it would be probably 30% accurate, but I'll sound confident. You know what I mean? And that's worse. So
okay, yes, that is.
Google the air system process of an engine or something like that and learn. But not from me.
So both Lotuses out now.
Yeah. So Hulme is meanwhile at front and slowly increasing his lead over Surtees and the Honda, who was himself being caught by Brabham, Rodriguez, and Rindt. So by lap 21, Brabham actually passed Surtees, and that was for second, as Rindt did the same thing 3 laps later. So that Surtees in the Honda doesn't seem to have a huge amount of race pace, does it?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So about this time, Rodriguez in the Cooper Maserati had lost second gear, and he was now sitting in 6th, having been passed by Love, who was, as I mentioned earlier, the local South African hero driver. So at lap 30, Hulme was enjoying a 30-second lead over Brabham, followed by Rindt in 3rd, then Love and Gurney.
So no team orders for Hulme to let Brabham through, it seems. Although, Louis, who would give the team order? Because isn't Brabham's the team manager?
Yeah,
I wonder how that would work.
Well, there'd be no radio.
No.
Yeah.
Would he just be driving on the circuit and hand gesturing?
Yeah.
That would be weird.
That'd have to be more organised in advance.
That'd have to be.
If this happens, you give me the lead.
Yeah.
But Jack Brabham wasn't that sort of a person.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah,
no.
he let. And when I say this, I don't think he let Gurney beat him a lot in 65. Gurney just beat him a lot in 65.
Yes, yeah, he didn't not let him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think he could have if he wanted to.
Yeah,
he could do whatever he wanted, and I'm sure.
Yeah. I reckon he even gave up his car a couple of times when they were short engines and stuff.
Yeah, he was giving it to Gurney.
Yeah, he was giving it to Gurney instead of himself. So
instead of the opposite of number 1, like making himself number 2, forcing himself down. So on lap 37, we have Love actually passed Surtees himself as well, and Gurney also passed Surtees the following lap. So Surtees not having a great time.
And Love is having an amazing time. He's really knowing these conditions here, isn't he?
Yeah. So on lap 39, Rindt retired with a broken engine, and then Brabham pitted with a misfiring engine. This pushed Love up to 2nd place and Gurney up to 3rd place. So poor Rindt, the number 1 in the Cooper Maserati, out.
A lot of action in 3 laps, though. And those Coopers, even with that really old Climax engine, they're doing not bad.
Wow, I forgot that it was only 3 laps.
3 laps.
Well, are we at the halfway mark by now?
No. That's a lot
3.
of action in 3 laps. It's lap 39.
These cars are not ready for the year, are they? That's why Ferrari knew that they were just going to retire anyway. They said, Don't bother. We're not going to make this car's not good enough for the race. Yeah. So then we have something very interesting, and I think it's quite memorable. With Gurney out, that meant Surtees was now up to 3rd, despite the fact that it seems like most people are passing him. Meanwhile, Rodriguez was creeping back up the field, and he now overtook Surtees to take 3rd place for himself. So Surtees is finding a way to fall back, even though people are retiring ahead of him.
Yes.
So now with 21 laps to go, it pretty much looked all over, with Hulme's lead now out to a minute. Then quite unexpectedly, Hulme drove through the pits screaming for brake fluid without stopping.
Okay, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That was their comms back then. They just drove through the pits yelling at their crew. That's a very creative way to telling their pit to get ready.
Yeah. I mean, he would have been screaming through those pits. There was no pit lane speed limiter back in those days. He would have been there would have been some mechanics of other teams, even his own team, diving, I imagine. Yeah.
Funny.
And I wonder how much he slowed down to shout, brake fluid, get ready, and then tear off again.
How would they even understand him? Like, that is weird. Maybe he did slow down. Like, maybe he did kind of, slow down and yell something. Surely. Otherwise, what was the point? Everyone would just be so confused.
And when he screamed brake fluid, or I'm sure he screamed it, not like conversation.
No.
Did he say brake fluid, and did the other person say check to confirm it was understood? Because what if he said brake fluid and he took off, and the person like, what did you say? And then he comes back in for the brake fluid, and they're like, what did you say last lap?
What did you want? What did you want?
And then Hulme takes off again and then has to do another lap.
It's just hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's a very unusual thing to have happen, right?
Absolutely. And we've not heard about it before. It's not like this is how it happened all the time.
So memorable. So Hulme basically stopped the next lap, and the now ready team had brake fluid for him. And this, however, allowed Love in the Cooper Climax, Rodriguez and Surtees to all pass the unfortunate Hulme. Brake fluid top-up mustn't be quick.
No. I wonder if he actually saved any places with this weird drive-by thing. Surely he must have. Like, he's lost 3 places here, hasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Like, yeah, how many more places would he have lost if they just stopped and they had to go? Like, did they have to go out the back to get the brake fluid? Like, I don't understand.
He may have known where it was in the back corner in the truck, and he knows it takes a minute to go there, and he would have lost a whole minute.
Yeah,
he must have been very smart, We'll
give him the benefit of the doubt anyway.
And let's also acknowledge that he self-diagnosed.
Yes, that's true.
I'm assuming he must have felt the brake pedal and thought, that brake fluid thing.
Yes.
But he had high confidence in his diagnosis.
He did.
What if it was something else? What if there was something stuck in the brake calipers or something?
Yes.
And he thought it was brake fluid. Remember that time, was it Gurney, that his steering wheel was broken and he thought he had a broken suspension?
Yes, that's right.
And you can understand why he misread that, because it would have felt like these drivers are judging by their bums and hands.
Their feel, absolutely.
And the feel was thrown off, and he thought something was wrong with the car. And it may have been a little hairline crack in the steering wheel or something like that, but enough to make it dangerous to drive. So yeah. So good on Hulme.
Good on him. Yes.
Yeah, self-diagnosing. So now we have Love in the Cooper Climax, who only ever drove 10 Formula One races, now in the lead by over 24 seconds over Rodriguez.
He's got the dream of a home win in his first. Is this his first F1 race?
No. He started a long time earlier, but
okay. So, but a home win here on the cards.
Yeah, unbelievable, and what a cool name that he's got too.
I know. Yes, he's up there with Lola and Eagle.
Yeah. So it was not to be though. However, because with 7 laps to go, Love had to stop for fuel, and this meant Rodriguez won the race. Love ended up finishing second, Surtees third, Hulme fourth with his brake fluid fiasco, and Brabham sort of a bit of a distant sixth.
Oh. So this was first F1 win for Pedro Rodriguez in his first drive for the Cooper.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. That's really, and remember he signed that team. He signed to that team to be the number 2 to Jochen Rindt, and here he goes winning his debut race.
Oh, Rindt's probably not happy about that now.
Yeah.
But did you know that Rodriguez, after this race, always travelled with a Mexican flag and a record of the national anthem, because at this race the organisers didn't have the anthem, and instead they played the Mexican hat dance.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Was he offended, or did he obviously was offended. He didn't find it funny, I think.
I don't think it would have been funny. How rude that they had to play the Mexican hat dance.
It's just like
Formula One can be unpredictable.
It's so unpredictable. Anyone can win a race theoretically.
Yes.
And they just got caught totally.
Totally, yeah.
And Rodriguez is like he's like a
famous.
He's a legend in Mexico.
Exactly.
I think they even named the Mexican Grand Prix circuit after him.
I think so, because there's 2 brothers, aren't there? There's Pedro and
Ricardo.
Ricardo, yes.
Ricardo died very young, didn't do many races, and Pedro was the one that got success, but because he didn't die as young. And this is terrible. Terrible for his debut win.
Yeah.
But it's funny that he carried a vinyl record with him wherever he went.
Yeah.
He probably had to have lots of copies of that, because probably handed it to the organisers. He may have not got the record back. Would have, how many people are involved, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember when I was looking at this, I saw for one of Oscar Piastri's wins when he was in the lower formulas.
Yeah.
Might have been in Formula 2 or even in like Formula 4. You know how he did what's before Formula 3, that other formula?
I don't know. Yeah.
He won a race and they played the British national anthem instead of the Australian one. And he just had to stand there and listen to it. Like no one stopped it or changed it. Yeah. Which is bad enough, but to have like the Mexican hat dance, I don't know what kind of status that song had back in the day.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It would have given a smile to some people.
Yeah, it would have.
But there is a funny story I heard about with an athlete. I think it was a championship event from Kazakhstan, and I think you know where I'm going with this. No, I don't. Have you seen the movie Borat?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. In that movie Borat, there's a bit of a inappropriate but very funny national anthem, and it's this joke will only make sense to those people that have seen the movie. And this person was on the podium, and they played that song from Borat instead of the actual national anthem, and it was quite offensive. That song was quite offensive to Kazakhstan people. And it was like guy had to stand. At least Oscar Piastri got like a formal. Yeah. A formal one, right?
And another country's national anthem. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I guess the last thing to say about this race was that Rodriguez won the race, as we know, and it brought back memories when I was reading this again to say, many of you may recall in 2011, when there was an issue between Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber.
Oh, yes.
Red Bull were definitely giving preferential treatment to Vettel, and that's understandable. It's a bit like Max and Sergio now. You put your money where the main driver is getting you the results. And I think it was the British Grand Prix. Webber just owned that race. I might be getting the year wrong. Might be 2012. Give or take 1 year. And he won the race, and the first thing he said was, "Not bad for a number 2 driver."
Oh, burn.
He did it big time. I love it when drivers really leverage that window. They know they're being broadcast, and they want the world to know. Yeah. You know, it was great. So I don't know if that sort of mindset was back in 67, but good on Pedro for winning the race.
Yes.
So how does it look?
So after race 1, Pedro Rodriguez is leading the Drivers' Championship standings on 9 points. John Love is second with 6 points, and Surtees is third with 4 points. And on the constructors, we've got Cooper Maserati on 9, Cooper Climax on 6, and Honda on 4. Very strange constructors championship there.
Yeah, you're not going to see that too much in the future. Like, if you've got shares in the Cooper team, it's time to sell now. Yeah,
exactly.
and this is I'm going to make a visual comment which might make sense to listeners. But this is 67, and I'm looking at next to these drivers. They've got their little flags for their countries, and John Love. That's not the South African flag now. That must have been the apartheid South African flag. It's got a little Union Jack with a blue. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Just something you don't often see. So we're up to the second race of the season, the Monaco Grand Prix, and we're talking the 7th of May, so nearly 5 months. Well, that is 5 months after Jan 2.
Yes,
so
it is.
Will Ferrari go, we'll turn up this time, not too far away. So the race is 100 laps, 16 drivers. It's a 2x2 grid formation, I think, again, dictated by the width of the track, and the weather was warm and dry. So this was actually the 25th Monaco race, and the organisers decided, here we go. This old gem, good old Monaco, decided to guarantee starting places on the grid to drivers of teams who had been building cars for at least 3 years.
What? That is so specific. Is it GP cars, like Grand Prix cars? Were they running out, like not just any car manufacturer? Like, were they running out of teams or grid places? Like, that is just weird.
It's just weird. And it's like complicated, sort of subjective.
Yeah.
Still, in my opinion, crazy. It's like, yeah. We're going to talk more about this.
Yes.
So with Ferrari, who are back and making their 1967 season debut, we also have BRM, Cooper, Brabham, and Lotus all getting 2 places, and Honda 1. So this is how that rule played out.
So technically, Honda had been building GP cars for at least 3 years then.
Yes,
but they only had one driver, didn't they? They only had Surtees.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it left 5 places up for 8 drivers to fight for. So a lot of drama and hassle for not much. Like they're nearly all still going to make it anyway. So why make it complicated?
So why do that? They found
a way. Yeah.
I'm surprised the other teams didn't protest or find a way of going around it. Like, let's just buy an old Formula One team like Talbot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, we've been around. Here, give us 2 places.
Yeah, we own the rights to Talbot. They've been around since the 50s. So we don't have to fight for those 5 places. I would have done that.
I know you would have. If you're
going to make a silly rule, I'll find a silly loophole. You're going to
challenge it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't know, though. Maybe they didn't know until they turned up. I can imagine it would be something that they would find out when they turn up, though.
Yeah, I reckon they turned out. Yeah, if they had noticed, they would have had time to do my strategy of buying out the Talbot name and bring it back. Yeah. Gee, so silly. So Lotus were absent for the first session as their transporter was delayed due to strike action.
Well, at least they had guaranteed spots.
Yeah.
Like it worked. It's working for Lotus. So.
Yeah. So we finally had full participation for qualifying after Lotus got through their dramas. And towards the end, we have Bandini in the Ferrari who recorded the fastest time until almost the end of the session when Brabham eclipsed the driver's Ferrari time by 0.7 of a second. So that's quite a lot.
That's a lot, yep.
I'm also disappointed. If I was Ferrari and Bandini, I'd be thinking, why did we miss the first race? We're competitive.
Yeah.
We just gave our competitors a leg up. Why did we do that? Enzo, right? Yeah. So anyway, Surtees and Honda in the Honda, Hulme and the Brabham were 3rd and 4th, followed by Clark in the Lotus and Stewart in the BRM in 5th and 6th.
Did Hill end up, the equal number 1 Lotus driver, Mr. Monaco? Is he Mr. Monaco by now? He's won quite a few races. Yeah, I think Monaco by now. It's like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I'm not sure when they started calling him that. It's a good question, actually. Yeah. We can call him that because we know that's his nickname.
We know, yeah.
But he lined up in 8th. So not that great, to be honest.
No.
So Ginther was the big name that failed to qualify in the Eagle.
Oh, yeah. I think this is the beginning, the end of his career. I think the Indy, had already happened by this stage, Louis, I believe.
Had it?
I think so.
Okay.
Anyway.
But we talk about it, right?
We do talk about it. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It's coming.
Let's keep going. Yes.
Okay. So at race start on Sunday, Bandini in the Ferrari, making their debut after ignoring the first race, shot past into the lead as Brabham's engine threw a rod halfway through round the opening lap. So throwing a rod doesn't sound good for an engine, which leaked oil on his tyres, causing him to spin and travel backwards down to station hairpin.
Okay, that's dramatic. That was apparently, though, that was a new Repco engine too, though, because he had to install it on Friday because something happened to his previous engine. So perhaps wasn't quite ready to take on the Formula One race.
Yeah. So the track was covered in oil, so Marshall started laying down cement dust to stoke it up. So
what?
Yeah.
Okay. So cement dust. That's the first time we've heard of that as well.
Yeah, and when they say cement dust, I think that's probably just cement. It's probably not like a special racing track cement dust. It's cement dust.
It's cement
you know what
dust,
I mean?
Yes. Yeah. It's the stuff you make cement out of.
Yeah, what houses are made of and stuff. Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
So the order was now Bandini in the Ferrari, Hulme in second in the Brabham, Stewart in third in the BRM, amazingly for that BRM on this track that's not a 400 brake horsepower power track. Surtees in the Honda, Gurney in the Eagle, McLaren, and then Clark in the Lotus, so a bit down there. So the cement dust was causing a lot of confusion for the drivers, and Clark ended up the escape road, which dropped him down the field.
So I'm assuming by confusion you mean that it was causing visibility issues?
Yeah, it must have. Because it kicks up, right?
Yeah. Even though there was oil on the track, it must still flare up with the cars going over them.
Yeah, it would have made visibility pretty tricky, actually. And who knows? And we don't know how much cement dust was thrown down. They could have just gone, here's a bag, cut open, and if there's a lot of oil, a lot of cement dust.
It goes everywhere anyway. Like it's pretty flyy stuff. Like as soon as you open the bag, stuff flies out of it. Anyway. Weird.
Interesting.
Monaco.
Yeah. So Hulme and Stewart, meanwhile, both went after Bandini, followed by Surtees, Gurney and McLaren. So on lap 5, Gurney retired with a broken fuel pump.
Okay. We're still in the era of broken fuel things.
Yeah.
That hasn't caught up in the Formula One era yet.
I know, isn't it? It's weird. Stewart then retired on lap 15 when his crown wheel and pinion broke.
Oh, gosh. Do you think all these parts were always there, or have these cars now developed to the point where we've got new parts in cars?
Well, I think what it comes down to, it's not that it's the new parts for cars, it's the fundamentals of cars. Like I think there's always been a changed. I don't think there's always been a diaphragm. There's always been a crown
wheel and pinion.
Yes. And I had to Google what that was, but I will refer back to a conversation we may have had like a year ago, and it's a good reminder that I remember when I went to this event in Sydney with some people that were from the 1950s motor racing and some from Formula One, and at that time in the 50s, it was all about gearbox braking. That was the standard procedure. I would ask, why did the gearbox break all the time? And the answer that those guys gave me, and these were people that were in their 80s and stuff, so they were around. The answer was these gearboxes were not made for racing. They were made for purpose A and purpose B, like normal racing. And the cars just got faster and faster and more powerful. And they just didn't think to upgrade the gearbox to something that could handle it until they discovered that their normal gearbox couldn't handle it anymore. And this might be the same thing. These fuel pump issues, these crown and pinion, they're the standard crown and pinion thing.
Yes, that you use on your family car for a Sunday drive. And then all of a sudden they're doing 300 kilometres an hour.
For 2 hours.
Yeah.
And they realise, okay, now we see that's the next part we have to do and strengthen, So I can explain what a crown wheel and pinion thing does.
Yeah. Let's leave that to the techie podcasters.
So too boring, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So to the race of healthy cars, Hulme was now in the lead as he had overtaken Bandini. So that was pretty impressive on this track.
Yeah.
Surtees was third, McLaren fourth, and Clark in fifth. So Clark was doing a little bit of a recovery, and that was mainly because Rindt retired with a broken gearbox.
That is a good comeback from Clark, seeing as he went down the escape road.
Yeah, that's right, with the dust.
Yes. And just out of interest, Luigi, where is Mr. Hill?
Yes, your obsession with Hill. Well, as they are number ones, I'm not sure at this stage, but we have more important things to cover right now, and you'll see why.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Keep going then.
Yeah, so on lap 28, so remember this is a 100-lap race. On lap 28, Surtees' Honda engine blew, and it revealed its famous blue smoke as he slowed down and eventually retired.
Famous blue smoke of death. It happens today still. We still get the blue smoke today.
Yeah. It's always a telltale sign that car's not driving much longer.
Yeah. Maybe they should change it to like pink or red. Red would be good.
Oh, yeah, for
Danger.
Ferrari.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking of Ferrari, like a Ferrari blend engine.
We're just danger.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Bluetooth blends too much. So Hulme continued to increase his lead over Bandini. So he was dominating the last race too until he had that brake fluid thing, right? So he's in the lead here too. And with McLaren third and Clark following very close behind, trying to pass McLaren.
Go Clark.
Yeah. So, Rosa, your pro-Clark British bias thing is ever building. Just a reminder to everyone that Rosa and I are Australians, and ironically, both Rosa and I have Italian heritage. So,
although you hate Ferrari with a passion.
No, I don't hate Ferrari. I liked them when Prost was driving for them.
Oh. That's when I didn't like them.
Oh, really? Yeah, we cannot like Ferrari at the same time. Number one rule.
That's right.
What are we going to do if Piastri joins them?
Oh, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
I'll be fine.
Yeah. I reckon Piastri is going to end up there. And we're talking in the middle of 2024 here. By the time someone's listening to this in 2026, Piastri's in Ferrari.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, let's see. So while I do admire and highly rate Clark, I do admit I'm not maybe as high a level as Rosa. So,
surprised at that, Louis. Like
he's right up there though. Don't worry.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's an irrational love of Clark that I have developed in my time researching the 50s and 60s. Well, not 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
Anyway, I stand by my Clark obsession.
Well, can I ask you a quick question then?
Oh, no.
Clark versus Moss.
Oh, Louis.
I've gone straight for the throat, haven't I?
Yeah. That's an unfair question. Look, I'd have to say Clark just over Moss, just because I think Moss just had not so much. I think. Oh, I can't get my words out now here. You've put me on the spot.
Yeah, you're choking up.
I'm choking up. Moss, because he just had such bad luck, but Clark, I think his talent is shining through lots more than Moss's did.
Yeah, I think Clark made better career decisions, maybe.
Yeah. Well, he only made one. He just stuck with
he ended up. Yeah, right. That's very funny.
But he was there at the right time and he made it work. And I think that's his driving talent. And we've heard so many stories of the way that his talent shines through. I think we had less of those from Moss.
Yeah, that's right, because he kept breaking down before the opportunity came.
Yes.
Yeah. So to the race itself, Clark never succeeded in catching and passing McLaren, unfortunately, because on lap 43, as he entered Tabac, his rear shock absorber broke, which sent the Lotus spinning into the wall and out of the race.
Oh, that's a shame. I did see a win coming. Never mind. I think we will make up for that in the TP Championship for sure.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I actually don't think Clark ever wins the Monaco race. It's a bit of an anomaly on his career. And that's not really a spoiler because he only just retired from this one. So
yeah, no, you're right. He never does win here. Never, ever.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we're at half distance and only 5 of the 8 cars are still running on the same lap as the leader, which again begs belief as to why Monaco does these silly rules when they
There's not enough races at the end.
Yeah, it's always like this at Monaco, and yet they keep having these crazy rules.
Oh.
So Bandini had now closed the gap up to the leading driver home to only 9 seconds. He was on a bit of a charge.
I'm going to say go Ferrari now because I'm getting the feeling that I won't get many opportunities to say this again this season. So go Ferrari.
You're good that you got it in because by lap 70, though Hulme had pulled away again, he had extended his lead back out to 14 seconds, which gives me the impression that Hulme was just pacing himself, you know?
Yeah.
Then McLaren needed to pit for a new battery and he lost 2 laps.
Well, that's not so much of a big deal given there are only 5 cars on the same lap as the leading driver.
But it did move Eamon in the Ferrari up into 3rd place. So you've got Bandini in 2nd and Eamon 3rd, and Hill into 4th. Your friend.
Finally, we hear from you. There you are.
But he's like a minute behind Eamon.
Oh, gosh. So he's had to wait. We've had to wait for 70% of the field to retire before we hear Hill's name.
Yeah, and at least he's nearly at the podium, so let's give him some credit for that. So Hulme's lead after 80 laps, again, remember this is a 100-lap race, was over 20 seconds, and then, unfortunately, tragedy struck. Bandini, chasing hard, clipped the chicane and hit a hidden mooring head. What is a mooring head? That's a shipping thing?
Why is it hidden, Luigi?
Yeah. Why is it hidden? Why do you
hide stuff like this on a racing track?
The car turning over, exploding into flames amongst straw bales. Unfortunately, Bandini was trapped in his car while it burned, and the rescue operation was hopelessly inadequate, and the intervention was very slow, and precious minutes passed before the fire was extinguished. Bandini was eventually rescued and rushed to hospital.
Apparently, the rescue wasn't helped by a helicopter carrying a TV camera crew as it hovered at a very low level over the burning car with the downdraft from the blades fanning what remained of the fire, and it reignited and it started burning more ferociously.
That's just nuts.
That just been horrific to watch.
It doesn't make sense that this is common. Surely the helicopter people would have seen what they were doing, you know?
No.
I'm not saying it's their fault. It may have all happened anyway, but it doesn't help the cause. It's not a good look.
No, it was not good.
So unfortunately, Bandini was terribly burnt and did succumb to his injuries days later.
So at this stage, we'd like to acknowledge Lorenzo Bandini. He was 31 at the time of his death. He had 42 Formula One entries, 1 win in the 1964 Austrian GP, 8 podiums, and he amassed a total of 58 career points. I, for one, will never forget him waving Surtees through in Mexico, giving Surtees his first championship.
Yeah. I'll never forget him having that collision with Graham Hill in that same Mexican race.
He has given us some great moments to talk about and fight about.
Yeah.
And for that, I think we have to say thank you to him.
Yeah, and he had a cool name too. Like Bandini sounds like a cool racing name. So
yes, yeah. So to this day, though, he is remembered in the F1 world by the Lorenzo Bandini Trophy, which honours an individual or team for their achievements in motorsport, particularly a commendable performance. So that's something. And I think they started that award in 1992.
Yeah. And they're still doing it to this day, is that right?
Yeah, they are.
That's nice.
They are. Yeah. George Russell won the last one.
Okay, cool. So following the sad events of this race, straw bales, amazingly, that were still there, were banned from Grand Prix circuits. The development of fire retardant fuel systems and flame-proof clothing for drivers and marshals was accelerated, and never again would a TV camera crew be allowed to fly a helicopter low over a burning car.
Finally, some good decisions on safety in Formula One. I wonder how much influence your friend Jackie Stewart had.
Yeah, I'm sure he played a part. I still struggle to understand how something like this could happen at a track like this. It's a small track. It's only a 1 minute 15 lap. How could it have taken so long to get anyone there?
And if you're not prepared, you're not prepared. Like they just weren't prepared.
One, if you're not prepared, and two, if you don't stop the race. Yeah. So they had a race raging and a fire burning. Like today, they red flag if you sneeze, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like it's a no brainer. I still don't understand why they don't stop races when things like this happen. It just doesn't make sense. It's like they all know, and I mean I hate to say it, but it's good for the sport because everyone loves to watch the F1 starts. And when you stop a race, you get another F1 start.
Exactly.
And they're shooting themselves in the foot by they're significantly making safety worse and taking away bonus spectacle points. So, yeah. So to finish off this sad race, Hulme continued to lead and finish unchallenged. With 8 laps to go, Eamon suffered a puncture and dropped to third, with second going to none other than our Graham Hill, 1 lap behind Hulme. So this tragedy did overshadow Hulme's first F1 victory on pretty much one of the world's most difficult circuits. And interestingly enough, 3 of the top 4 finishers were New Zealanders. So you had Hulme first, Eamon and McLaren in the top 4. And they are, this is a very unusual stat, 30% of the total number of New Zealand drivers who have started in Formula One as at July 2024. Isn't that really weird? That is
weird.
That's an unusual stat. And Liam Lawson, we hope, will make that stat more interesting.
Well, didn't he start a Formula One?
He did 5 races in 23, I think.
23, right. There you go.
Mm.
So when news of this accident broke, many of the star drivers were travelling to the United States to qualify for the Indy 500. And this was one of the factors that caused Ginther to announce his retirement.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not surprised. If a driver can die in such terrible circumstances at a well-resourced short track and a slow track at Monaco, it means a driver can die anytime, anywhere. So you know what? Good on you, Ginther, for making the call.
All right, so we'll go to the championship standings. We now have Denny Hulme in the lead on 12, Pedro Rodriguez on 11, and Graham Hill on 6. Ooh. Well, Clark isn't
where's
there.
Where's Clark? Yeah, I was about to say, where's Clark? Where's your hero?
I have to say now, where's Clark?
Yeah.
Constructors, we've got Brabham Repco storming to the lead on 12, and with the Cooper Maserati on 11 and the Lotus on 6. All right. Well, Louis, I think we might leave it there because that was a pretty long session.
Yeah.
And we'll come back and continue 1967 next time.
Okay. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye. We have a Patreon.
Yay, we're a professional podcast now. So it means a lot to us if you are able to support the F1 Time Portal podcast.
For a small monthly fee, you not only get ad-free podcast content, you will also receive special episodes that are exclusively uploaded for our Patreon financial supporters.
We promise at least 2 additional exclusive episodes each month aligned to the decade we are up to in the show.
And you will also be able to make suggestions about any special episodes you may want us to research and present. We can't promise that we can do all of them, but we will consider them.
So, if that sounds like an entertainment bargain to you, go and sign up at patreon.com/F1 Time Portal today.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please tell your friends and non-F1 friends alike.
Yeah, and don't forget to rate us 5 stars or whatever highest is available on the podcast platform that you use.
We have a range of social media handles for you to connect with fellow listeners, so look up F1 Time Portal on all the usual platforms.
Or visit us at www.f1timeportal.com or email us at f1timeportal@gmail.com.
We would like to give credit to our primary reference materials, a series of books called Grand Prix by Mike Lang.
We also use many other written and digital references, which are in our show notes.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.